Let's bring in Jason Cole. It's been pretty crazy these last. I mean, Jason.
24 hours. 24 hours.
Saban, Belichick, and Carroll, all in that like time window, and you're like, who shocked you the most?
Well, Saban, I never thought Saban was ever going to quit. Like, right? Like, I thought
be like a Supreme Court guy, die on the bench.
Basically, yeah. I was like, and maybe it's because I don't follow college football, but but the people that I listen to, like, the podcasts I listen to, just to keep up with what's going on in the college game, to kind of have an understanding of what the landscape is. Not one person said, "Oh yeah, I hear Saban's going to quit." Not one. There wasn't one guy. Carroll, we've been talking about for a couple of years. When was the time when it didn't match up for the Seahawks to kind of rebuild this, especially with a new quarterback, or look ahead to a new quarterback, because you wouldn't think that Pete would stick around for a new quarterback. And Belichick, we've been talking about for a couple of years, basically, but especially the last 2 months, that it was just a matter of time. So those were expected. But then I was like, Saban? What? I know that guy. 72. I thought he would have been, like Bear. And
like an 80 guy. Bear was 80.
Yeah, and Bear essentially died on the job.
Yeah, he did.
He literally
after the Liberty Bowl.
Yeah, and so I kind of thought that. And also the other thing, Saban's in great shape. Physically, he's
so is Pete.
Pete's in great shape too, but but Saban, you look at him and you're like, that guy looks like he could pass for 65. Now he's had some work done to look like that, but but he carries it.
Put into context, because when you talk about greatness in the NFL, it's not always just about numbers, but maybe with coaches, is it different because of you're only gauged on wins and losses and championships, division titles. So when you're talking players, like someone would look at Gale Sayers and go, this guy, insane, versus a guy like a Frank Gore. And no disrespect, I love Frank Gore. This guy's like 4th or 3rd in all-time rushing, and then you're looking at Sayers going, Frank Gore's not that guy. Is it different when we're talking about coaches, or is it all about the numbers?
It's not purely about the numbers, but it's more heavily weighted toward the numbers, because that's what the measuring stick is, right? It's just that you don't get to see what plays out on the field. We get to see Gale Sayers make a move, even if it's on tape now, or we saw Terrell Davis make a move and then go, or Frank Gore make a move, or Curtis Martin, or Emmitt Smith, or name all those guys. You get to actually say, that's an amazing move. They did something physically that you can see with your eyes. Or John Elway throw a ball, or Patrick Mahomes throw a ball. All these things that we get to see, and we make a judgment on that. You don't get to see the machinations that go on in a coach's head as he's standing on the sideline, or during the week, even figuring out, how am I going to beat my counterpart? How am I going to outplan him? It's not the same kind of physical skill. It's a mental skill. So there's nothing to see from what coaches do. And the fact of the matter is, look, you and I both know, a lot of the times with coaches, it's not even necessarily their plan, right? It's just how the ball's bounced, or how the guy happened to run to the right hole. That wasn't even the play that was designed.
Or the luck of the Jimmies and Joes.
Exactly. How does that work out? Because there's some guys who are really brilliant strategists who haven't won titles. Kyle Shanahan is a great, great coach. He didn't have a title. But if you want to talk about knowledge of the game and how to move players around, all these other things, Well, I put Kyle in any conversation with any of those guys, is of talking X's and O's. But he doesn't have the titles yet. So he doesn't get into the conversation yet. Like he just doesn't measure yet. So yeah, it's about winning. And it's not as simple as, okay, Belichick has 6 titles as a head coach and 2 more as an assistant, therefore he's the greatest of all time. I still think it's Joe Gibbs because he's got 3, and he did it with 3 different quarterbacks and all sorts of circumstances, right? But Belichick's number 2 to me. Then you get to Paul Brown and the Lombardis and the Shulas, and we start having this argument, and there's this great lump of 10 or 20 coaches that we can argue about for forever.
You think he's the greatest head football coach in the salary cap era?
Yes. Well, I mean, yeah, it's since '92. Anybody else won 6 times?
It's pretty remarkable that, I mean, with the constant changeover, it's like a college. College you have every year you have graduation. It's kind of, you have that now same in the NFL where you have a ton of turnover now in your rosters.
Right. I mean, and look, there's some of this is, look, he had Brady. Okay, you cannot mitigate the greatness that Brady brought to the table, the consistency.
But Jace, let me stop you there, because when people go there with that, he also went and got Lawyer Malloy. He also went and got Edelman. Yes. He also went and got Richard Seymour. He also went and got Gronk.
Moss.
He also went and got Hern. I mean, that all plays into it too. Yes, he found Brady, but Brady needs a team around him.
Look, I'm not trying to take away from Belichick's greatness by saying he had Brady. Like, that wasn't, because then if I do that, I have to do this with Paul Brown and take away Otto Gray.
And Walsh.
Or I have to take away Joe Montana. Or Lombardi, I got to take away Starr. Like, they all had great quarterbacks, okay, with the exception of Gibbs.
Yep,
Gibbs
true.
did not have the great quarterback.
He's the outlier. He didn't have a Hall of Fame quarterback.
No, and not even close. Doug Williams is a fabulous talent, but not close in terms of being a Hall of Famer, right?
Joe Theismann too, and Rippon. Right. They're not close.
Right. They were guys who had a couple of good years, right? Probably Doug more, because if you count the Tampa years and really understand the
4 and 5 years, playoffs, 4 or 5 years.
You just really understand how that worked. You sit there and go, okay, this is a whole lot better than we realized. But whatever. There's no Hall of Fame quarterback behind him. Okay? There's just not. And all those other coaches, just about every one of them had a Hall of Fame quarterback behind them, or with them, or next to them, or out front. And that's just how it works. Belichick did some amazing things along the way. And yes, winning in the salary cap era, convincing guys to come play for you, taking a chance on a 6th round pick and playing him over Drew Bledsoe,
who they had just given a $117 million deal and an $18 million signing bonus the previous year to. Think about that, Jace. You have to go to Kraft and go, hey, that $17 million? Well, we're going with the 6th rounder. And then they turn around and trade him in the division to the Bills.
Yes. Look, for him to have the stones to say, I'm hitching my wagon to Brady, is an amazing thing. People forget that all these years later. To take and then to win with those first 3 titles, there's a lot of Jags on that team. There's a lot of guys that, they just made it work, right?
Yeah.
And you could in that era, because we hadn't seen the development of a lot of the great quarterbacks yet. Like Drew Brees wasn't Drew Brees yet. Roethlisberger's not in the league. Eli Manning's not in the league.
L.J. Smith.
Right. Now, those guys still win, and they're still their fair share of Hall of Famers, and the quarterback becomes the quarterback, and all those other things. But at the end of the day, he had the guts to hitch his wagon to Tom Brady and say, that's my guy. I believe I can win with him. And Brady made it work with Belichick, because no quarterback has ever had an easy time working with Belichick, other than, and even Brady didn't have an easy time, but he was the perfect guy to work with Belichick, because he could take the heat. he could take it and take all the criticism and keep rolling through.
Can I tell you, Jace, that I think that this is more of a statement that if you get a job first and you don't succeed at it, that maybe you take it like Mike Shanahan did, and you know some of the things that you're not going to do at your next gig. I think that decision that you talk about, and I completely 1000%, that there lies like Pete Carroll did with Matt Flynn when they signed that guy as a backup and they drafted Russell Wilson in the third, was a huge decision because they had given that guy an $18 million contract. He was the backup to Favre. And so to me, I think Belichick, the decision that he made to go from Vinny to Vinny, from Kosar, in my opinion, the team never recovered from that. And he had gone to the playoffs the year previous. And then the next year, the team went down. And then that whole thing fell apart for him in Cleveland. I think that move and that decision made him go, I'm going to go with my gut feeling here on this. Because if you remember right, Bledsoe won the AFC Championship game, and then Belichick had to make the decision in the Super Bowl. Am I going with him or a guy who just won the AFC title and my money guy? He went with Brady. To me, I think that's the stones of the century.
It's one of the biggest plays ever because Bledsoe had been to a Super Bowl.
Right. That's right. He lost to Green Bay, and he had just won the AFC title because Brady was hurt.
Right. I mean, it's like Bledsoe had a resume. Bledsoe had money, he had a resume, an investment, the whole thing, right? It was all there. And Bledsoe was, by the way, a Parcells guy.
Were you shocked he did that?
Of course we're shocked he did that. Yeah.
I was.
Right. Everybody's looking at Brady going, who's this? What's this? Like he didn't jump off the page. I mean, look, they were a team that shortened games. And when I say that, you understand what I'm saying. Like they're a team that was trying to reduce the number of plays that they had in the game so that they can cover up for their weaknesses, right? When you have a team like that, you're like, I'm not scared of the quarterback, right? Like, this guy doesn't frighten me. And then all of a sudden, by year 4 of Brady in the league, you're like, well, wait a second, man, this is a little different. Like, wait a second, I got this one wrong, didn't I? Like,
it kept getting crazier every year.
Right. And then he throws the 50 touchdown pass, and you're like, God, maybe this is a little more than I thought. Like
maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I could have been. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, again, I thought the kid had ice water and like in his veins and could make some big plays, but he became even more than that, right? Like he became something beyond all of that when you gave him more tools. And look, I will say this: Bill did not play the end game very well.
No.
Like you should have just gotten out of the way and say, you know what, Tom, play it out until you're ready to walk. And we'll pay you and let this go on until there comes a point where Brady has to walk away because he physically can't do it anymore, or you have Kraft on your side who's looking at it going, yeah, the kid can't do it anymore. We have to do this. And let it be Kraft's idea or Brady's idea. And then you got a longer runway. But he, again, went with his gut that told him, now is the time to move on. I want to get my control of my team back. I'm tired of dealing with the Guerreros of the world and all these other things that are going on with Brady and not being here and all this other stuff. He forced the issue. Well, when you force the issue, okay, dude, the pressure's on you. Belichick, if he had cared about the politics of it, he would have done this differently. He didn't care about politics. He cared about going with what he thought was the right thing to do.
You think Pete Carroll's a Hall of Fame coach, NFL or pro football?
I have to think about that one a little bit longer. He's in the discussion. Like when we Tom Coughlin. We talked about Tom Coughlin last time. It was how does Pete compare to Tom Coughlin? Yeah, I got to think.
Tom's got 2 though.
Tom's got 2. Yeah, I like. You put it all together. Madden had 1. Like all these kinds of things you talk about, right? There's no one stat that says this guy's an automatic, right? Not with guys like that. With Belichick, there is a stat: 6
Yeah.
rings. Yeah, like you don't even like just let's
17
move along.
division
Like
titles. Hey,
yeah,
right.
like I don't even need to hear the argument. Just like it's the old one. Bill Belichick, thanks. Sit down. Can
Yeah.
we move on? Next guy, right?
Peyton
Like
Manning,
that's what you
sit
do.
down.
Yeah, like with Pete, it's going to be a discussion. I don't know that it's not easy, but that's a great coach. I mean, like that's a guy who lasting impact on the game. Created an amazing defense. That was the best run in Seattle history.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
people in Seattle should they should have a nice little statue of Pete Carroll in front of the training
And
center.
people forget Holmgren was up there and took their team to a Super Bowl. So, I mean,
Yeah,
that's a pretty
I
good
mean,
run up there.
yeah, the homegrown was terrific up there. Pete was better.
Yep, absolutely. So let me do this, Jace. I want to get to the games this weekend. By the way, and real quick,
I got a question for you before you go.
coming.
I was thinking about this. Of those 3 jobs, and it's really only the 2 jobs. I don't think the Seattle job is so hard for the next candidate to walk into
No,
because
because
the
they got a great
environment is
GM up there.
Well, but also it's Seattle. It's just not this kind of pressure. But Alabama or New England, which is the harder job to walk into and be successful?
I think it's got a lot to do with who it is. I think Jim Harbaugh could take both jobs and not wink or not flinch at any of
Right.
those
I agree
jobs.
with that. He doesn't care because he doesn't care about what you think.
Because I saw Jimmy go in and replace Landry and Shula. And you have to have something like that. Now, the Bama job,
You gotta have big stones.
right? The Bama job will be a very difficult job, but you have to remember during that Bama reign, there's been only 2 sustained times of tremendous success. It was Coach Bryant and it was Nick. And for 17 years, Nick dominated. But previous to that, you had guys in there like David Shula who were 26 and 24.
Yeah, they just well, I mean, it was a meat grinder. Like
It
they
was,
just take a guy,
and
spin him back out, take him, spin him
Auburn
out.
and Pat Dye actually at the time, prior to Nick getting there, had built a better culture at Auburn. And Auburn was actually, one year they were 11-0 with Tuberville. And I mean, but today, I think that job is I think that job is more difficult because of the amount of money in college football and the nil. Bama is the reason he retired is because of the financial situation and commitment Alabama alumni and the association were not committing. Because I'm going to tell you, Jason, you are not going to go into Alabama and if you're not going to spend the money that Texas and all them Texas schools, the Florida schools, University of Florida, what people don't understand about the Gators, there's a thing called the Bull Gator Club.
I know what
And
it
the
is.
Bull Gator Club, there's like $78 million that they have that's in that. John Morgan is a great guy who donates to that. And he put $25 million himself into that Bull Gator. That's why Billy Napier, I'm surprised he survived. So when you're in the southeastern part of the country like that, and in today's nil, you have got to spend money. You want to hear this, Jace? The
let's just back it up.
Look at Arch Manning. You know, Arch Manning makes 3 times the money that the guy who was the All-Pro quarterback or the NFC starting quarterback in the Pro Bowl, Brock Purdy makes. Purdy makes $870. Arch Manning's a 13 quarterback at Texas, and he makes $5 million a year.
Here's what I think. Forget the NIL but
I like the New England job.
I think that Alabama is impossible because the standard and expectation, and you're dealing with a fan base that's crazy and doesn't understand reality, and B, you're dealing with boosters who don't understand the problem that you're talking about, right?
Correct. So, they think they're still in the 60s.
Right. They think that they could just run roughshod. So that's a real.
The Bama fans and the Bama alum think they can roll the helmet in the kid's living room floor And kids today, that was nice back in the 80s
It's
and the 90s.
it's a real business now.
You
It's
got
a
you
it's a
you have
real
to roll
yeah.
bags of money now, not helmets.
Yeah, and they did bags of money before, but not these kinds of bags. I will
No,
say
no.
this, that's tough. But I will also say that the New England job, I think, requires a special person like what you were talking about, the Harbaughs of the world, the Jimmys of the world. And I think that there's really only one guy who's real at the NFL level.
Vrabel.
Yeah, it's Vrabel, because Vrabel doesn't give a damn.
Plus, he's a
Vrabel,
former Patriot great.
yeah, he's a former Patriot great, so he comes in with a cachet of respect, so he's
Yep.
got some of that. But the biggest part about Vrabel is he just doesn't care.
Totally. He
Yeah,
does,
I mean, and that
of,
doesn't mean he's going to win,
no,
but
no.
I don't think he's going to be affected by the fact that that's Bill's seat.
Here's my problem with how the media are covering that job, saying that, and you're right about, hey, you want to follow the guy who followed the guy. You really don't want to follow the guy who's
Yeah,
the guy.
that's true. Yeah.
Okay. But Bob Kraft has won prior to Bill being in the room there. He won, had Parcells. His organization will put all the resources that they need. He's a great owner. How he got in the Hall of Fame, how he got not in the Hall of Fame and Jones got in before him is insanity wise, because this guy's
let's not go.
He's got twice the rings.
Yeah, but he didn't have twice the rings at the time that Jimmy got in. I mean, that Jerry got in, number one. Number two, Jerry did.
You think Jerry's been a better football owner than Bob Kraft?
For the totality of the league and what they're trying to do, I would argue
no, football guy, not an overall. Jerry's
but see, I always come back to this, and I said it to Bob Kraft right to his face because he asked me about it. We were in his office, and he goes, "This is after Jerry got elected," and Jerry goes, "So Jerry Jones making it in the Hall of Fame," and I knew it was a roundabout way for him to say, why not me? He was very, very polite about it, and I said, "Bob, I don't know what to tell you, but he's P.T. Barnum." And he just and Bob, it totally diffused the argument because Bob understood exactly what I'm talking about. Jerry Jones is the greatest showman this league has seen since George Halas.
He's Vince McMahon.
Absolutely. And doesn't give a damn what you think of him. He's here to prop up the business. We are in the business of entertainment. He understands as an owner, this is a soap opera. So guess what? I'm going to play to your soap opera antics. Now, we can all disagree whether that's good for the team or not, but it's great for the league because you and I both know it's important. You have to have bad guys. You have to have villains. And the greatest villain in the history of this league ever was Al Davis. Nobody's ever been as good as Al Davis at being a villain. But Jerry Jones does not bother him to be the villain and to stir it up and to get people excited. And he understands that's the business. That's why we care. That's why we get into it, because of the personalities. George Steinbrenner was that for baseball. That's important. You got to have guys who stir the emotions, and owners are really important. And most of the owners right now are corporate guys who primarily are afraid of the media.
Absolutely. Let me ask you about Wild Card Weekend here.
Okay.
Green Bay at Dallas.
Uh-huh.
Jordan Love, get this, in the last 8 games has thrown 17 touchdowns and 1 interception. He's got 31 on the year. And I'll tell you what, I looked his numbers up. I could not believe he's a 4,000-yard passing guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to tell you, Chase, I'm pretty shocked. I'm not saying he's going to be Aaron Rodgers, or I'm not saying he's any of those guys, but holy shit, he really had a pretty good year, man. I mean, if I'm
down, very good.
I'm on upset alert here a little bit.
A little bit. Look, put it this way. Green Bay went into Detroit on Thanksgiving Day and smoked those dudes. Detroit went into Dallas and, came this close to beating them. We can argue about the last call or not. I don't really care about that anymore. The fact of the matter is Detroit went toe-to-toe with Dallas. All right? Green Bay, I really don't think Green Bay's as good as Detroit. They did beat them. I don't think that they're as consistently good. I don't think they have all the weapons. I don't think the matchups were quite the same. but Green Bay believes that they are.
I
Like
think
when you
Green
watch
Bay's got
them
a
play,
good coach.
they've got a good coach. They got a good young quarterback who has figured it out very quickly. And when you watch him play, the game is not too fast for him, right? Like he understands the speed of the game, how, like, okay, this is not going to be open. This is happening. I'm dumping it here. This pass is here. I can lob it in here. I got to fire it into here. He's got it down right now. He's really hot. The last 8 games, the first part of the season was inconsistent still. Second half of the season's been terrific, like you talked about. So he's figured it out. He's confident. Yes, you could see that happen to Dallas. Do I expect it? No, I expect Dallas to win. But
You want to hear
Green Bay, I think,
something?
can give them a game.
You want to hear something crazy? Mike McCarthy is 35-17 in the last 3 years in Green Bay. He's 35-17. He's 1-2 in the playoffs. Dak's had a career year, and yet you're hearing there's a potential that they can't have a one and done here. Could you see Jerry? Because of well, and you know what makes it and why it makes it more realistic? Because of what you and I talked about, the candidates that are out there. Because I'll
Sure.
tell you what, this is not just, we've seen job openings before, Jace. To me, it's not about the job openings. There's like 9 of them. To me, it's more about the candidates that you could bring in for a quick fix
some
here.
really, yeah, but I'm going to come back to this. I think Jerry likes that story out there because he likes to put a little pressure on the people involved, right? Like he wants, like here, let's turn the screws a little bit on McCarthy. Because just like, remember before the season, he was
Don't
turning
talk like a ringleader.
Right. Yeah, but remember, he was turning the screws on Dak all throughout the offseason. Well, Dak's got to do this, Dak's got to do that. The quarterback's got to play the, so everybody was talking. So what happens? Dak's responded. So Jerry doesn't have Dak to get on anymore. So, okay, McCarthy, let's get on him. Let's turn the screws a little bit on him, right? So he's doing it with McCarthy, which is fine. McCarthy's getting a lot of money. The owner's allowed to say whatever the owner wants to say. I'll always come back to this though. Jerry likes to have coaches who do it his way. And in order to get one of the guys that you just talked about, the Harbaughs, the Belichicks, the Carrolls, he has to give up control. Those guys aren't going anywhere without control. They're certainly not working for Jerry without control. And Belichick ain't putting up with the owner being in the locker room after every game. So as like Jason Garrett lasted a long time in Dallas because he put up with all the Jerry shenanigans. Okay. Dave Campo lasted a long time because he put up with Jerry's shenanigans. Okay. We can go on down the line. Jerry wants a guy who's going to let Jerry be Jerry. And right now, McCarthy is going to let Jerry be Jerry. Those other guys ain't going to let Jerry be Jerry.
I like the fact, too, that McCarthy's playing against Green Bay, too. But that leads me to this one now. I got to tell you something. I like this. I think Sean McVay, if I were going to compare Sean McVay to a coach from my era, it would be somebody like Bill Walsh. He is such a great freaking coach. He's a great game plan guy. He's a great play caller. I mean, Jesus criminy, why do I like the Rams against this Detroit team going into Detroit? I think Detroit's better, but I mean, Raheem Morris has done a hell of a job on defense. I hope he gets an opportunity for a head coaching opportunity. I mean, they got great
because they can actually run the ball.
He's good, man.
Look, if you give Sean McVay a requisite running game, in other words, a reasonable,
and they got one.
Right.
They got a rookie kid who's great.
Well, he's not a rookie; he's second year, but you're
he's a great player.
All right, Kyron Williams, and they're I think they're 7-1 in the games where he's rushed for at least 80 yards. Right, so he's been terrific. He's added balance to their offense. Right, like they can go out and they can run their stuff where there's a threat and the play action works. It sets up Stafford and allows Kupp and Nakua to get more one-on-one coverage, which they're going to beat one-on-one coverage all the time. So yeah, as long as you have a reasonable threat, it's just like with Shanahan, you have to have a good running game to operate everything else that they do. The difference, I think, is with the Rams is they've got a quarterback who, when he's behind, it doesn't phase him. He can make big throws.
Great arm.
Whereas, big arm and can beat when you drop 7 and drop 8, he can beat that. Okay, because he's got enough of an arm. Whereas Brock Purdy doesn't have that kind of arm. Tua, McDaniel's got a real problem with Tua because when they're behind, not only is he going to make some knucklehead decisions, he doesn't have that same kind of arm to beat the more complicated coverages. That's just the reality of what it is. Matt Stafford can wing it against anybody at any time, which is why the Rams went toe to toe with Baltimore and took them to overtime, right? And you're like, everybody's talking about Baltimore as the second coming, and they're just going to roll everybody. Look, they've had their games and they've gotten pushed around. Cleveland pushed them around pretty good. The Rams pushed them around, took them to overtime. The Baltimore is not invincible, all right, and they're the best team in the league right now, and they proved it on the field. But they're not invincible. And when you talk about McVay and you give him the weapons, such as a running game, complementary receivers, and he's got the quarterback who can do electric things.
And they could stop people on defense too now because they've gotten better on that side of the ball. The Monday night game, obviously, Jason, a lot of people here are going to be interested in this. And I'll make this point. It's crazy when you hear people in Philly, especially in the media, well, the Bucs haven't really beaten a lot of great teams down the stretch. And I'm like, well, I turn around and go, you've lost to some shitty teams down the stretch. I mean, you've lost to the Cardinals and you've lost to the Giants. Seattle's not that bad, but every one of those teams are going to be in the draft, in the high end of the draft. I mean, you've lost 5 or 6.
Your team's in disarray.
You're 3-5. But here, wait, follow me here. They're the worst team in the NFL in pass coverage, and you've got 2 1,000-yard receivers. You got a back that's a 1,000-yard rusher and a 65 catch guy. You got a 4,000-yard passer in Baker Mayfield. Every dynamic that they haven't stopped in a month and a half. I can't just turn my eye and go, well, hey, it's the Bucs and it's the Eagles, and go, the Eagles have played shitty ball. I'm telling you, I think this game's going to be a lot closer. Plus, you got Todd Bowles. He's going to blitz, and they're going to throw the ball to beat them. And they have not been able to stop either of that.
Look, we all talk about momentum. It's this, thing.
They have none.
They have 0. They have negative momentum right now. They're in disarray mentally. I don't think the coach knows how to. The coach is a front runner and doesn't know how to handle this. I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I'm just saying he's young and he's trying to figure this one out, and he hasn't figured it out yet. Right? They're trying to replace the 2 coordinators. Look, the first 11 games, I said it on this show. I thought they were the best team in the league after the first 11 games because they could impose their will still. They haven't imposed their will on anybody the last 2 months of the season. They have not used their strength at all. And the predictability, all the things that we talk about are real. All right. With that offense, the way that they play. And guys, you see how frustrated the guys are, like AJ Brown. It's everywhere. They have a lack of confidence. No question about it in everything that they do. They're still a better team though on paper. And I look at it, I'm
Agreed.
like, when is this team going to wake up? Hassan Reddick has 2.5 sacks in the second half of the season. Like during this, they can't get him loose. And why? Because of guys like Jordan Davis and the rest of the guys playing in the middle. Where's Jalen Carter been? He's just disappeared off the face of the map. Right. He hit, the kid hit a wall. Everybody was talking about the first half of the season, how great he was, and now he's nowhere. And Jordan Davis is nowhere. He's tired. He looks beat up. And I think that the 40, they're ever since that 49ers game, like they lost their mojo in that game, and they got beat up in that game.
They did.
Right. And so that hit them hard, and they have not recovered from that at all in any
I think
way,
there's a
shape, or
tough
form.
game on Monday then.
I think it's a very tough game for them, but I just think Philly's better than Tampa. I do. Tampa, you talked about the weapons. Yeah, they still don't have anybody who really gets in the end zone. They've got, you know,
Like
Evans has
Evans.
got 13 touchdowns. White's got 9. After those two, they have another guy with 4. They have a rough time scoring. And I think Philly can score enough to get through that game, but I don't see anything beyond that at all. I think they're one and done just with the where their heads at.
Let me take you to the AFC. Pittsburgh at Buffalo. I'll tell you something about Tomlin. Man, for the whispers that there were, and I don't know how real they were, but my God Almighty, this guy's winning ball games with Mason Rudolph. I mean, if you're Mike, do you go into next year with Mason Rudolph, or do you go into next year and before I ask you about the game, don't you, if you're Pittsburgh, do something out of the box? Go get Russell Wilson.
Russell's
He didn't have a bad year. He did not play poorly.
He's not built for that environment. He's not built for that. Like that. He's not built for that.
They're a quarterback away from a Super Bowl, in my opinion.
Do you think that Sierra is going to live in Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh's a fine city.
Answer my question. You know what I just said. You know what I just said.
She could commute in from Jersey if she wants.
You know what I'm saying. She ain't doing that.
I didn't think Giselle. Oh, that's right. They divorced. She never lived in Tampa, really. Maybe for a half a year. Maybe that's what really did it. I'm in Tampa. Okay, the only thing I see in Tampa is oxygen mask. Are you kidding me? I'm going to Miami. So maybe, I don't know. I think you're probably right. Give me the game. Okay. Pittsburgh, Buffalo.
I don't know. Like, this is a game that's going to be bizarre because the weather's so bad. What is it? They're talking about a blizzard, winds, and who knows what who knows.
Favors Buffalo.
Yeah, it's
I don't know. Pittsburgh plays in shitty weather too.
But there's a difference playing.
Yeah, I know better than that.
Right.
You're right. Wait a minute, Jace. There's sleet in Pittsburgh, and then there's snow in Buffalo, and the wind. You can't drive your team bus to Rich Stadium. I don't know what they call it now, but it's even that still. When you can't drive your bus down the hill there, that hill you go around there, and when you can't get down there, we got a problem.
I've never seen worse weather to play a game in than Buffalo on multiple occasions, and that's just the wind.
Oh God.
The wind, like trying to throw, like it destroys any kind of game. Like I saw Mark Royals, who was a very competent punter.
Oh, former teammate of mine.
Right. Mark Royals hit a punt in Buffalo trying to hit it into the wind. And instead of line driving, he screwed it up because he didn't line drive it. It got up in the air and just hit the wall of wind 1 yard.
Like you're hitting a 9-iron in the wind and it goes.
You kick it. It went 1 yard, silly. I swear to God, it was a 1 yard punt because it hit the wind. Everybody was laughing at him. I was like, "Did you see what the wind did to that ball?" Now he screwed it up because he should have line drived it to off to the sideline and got like 30 yards out of it. But that's what that does. And I've seen quarterbacks, Dan Marino, as good as he was, I've seen him throw a ball into that, and it's like die and quail. So now we're going to take that wind, combine it with Buffalo snow. You tell me how that game's going to play out. I have no idea. I'm taking the better
13-3 Buffalo.
Right. But I'm taking the better quarterback because I trust the better quarterback. But the better quarterback throws the ball to the other team an awful lot.
Like, I guarantee you, they'll be like the Dallas game. There might be only 13 passes in this game.
Yeah, I just it's a game that is not. It's not determined really by the players. It's determined by the elements.
How about this one? Yeah. Okay, how about this one? Now, this is what most you and me know this, and some people in here that watch and know the NFL. This is an old Pete Gogolak and Larry Zonka game here, Miami, Kansas City. This goes back. I remember when I was a young kid, the longest game ever played. I watched it that day on NBC, and I think Kurt Gowdy was calling the game. And we're doing that when you and I were kids. We're watching that. That stuff that made the NFL great. Kurt Gowdy in the old AFC back in the day. But I got to tell you, I played with Miami guys. And anytime they saw snow, it was like kryptonite. And I'm going to tell you something about living, and you know this, when you live in Florida, even if you're from the Northeast, your blood thins and you walk into that area. I'm going to tell you what, if Miami scores a touchdown in that game against Kansas City, I'll be stunned.
I will say this. Remember when in 93 when the Dolphins with Shula and Moreno went into Dallas and won in an ice storm? I saw that game, and the Dolphins actually outplayed them because they had a bunch of guys who were from, like Marino and Byers. Marino wasn't on that team at that time. He was hurt that year,
you're right.
But they had a bunch of guys. They had a bunch of Northeast guys who understood how to play in the snow, and the Cowboys were filled with Canes. Okay, who they just didn't like. They were like, "What's
cold
this
weather's
stuff?"
out.
Yeah. Snow was a different meaning, had a different meaning for those kids.
No.
But anyways, I think this one's really rough for Tua. I mean, Tua is from Hawaii. He ain't never played.
Here's a guy from Honolulu going to Antarctica.
Right. Like, come on.
This thing's supposed to be 20 below.
Tyreek's going to have a little bit of red ass for this game because he's going to want to prove something against them.
No, he's not. He's going to be freezing.
Well, he's a Florida kid too, but he at least played in Kansas City when it's cold, and he's going to have a little something, and maybe that gets him through the first 3 quarters and gets him to 10 points. But there's a no Moss element to this. Okay, there's I'm not built for this at a certain point. Nobody's really built for playing in weather like that. And here's the other thing: Kansas City's got a real defense. They're not talked about the same way quite as Baltimore, but their numbers are almost exactly the same as Baltimore's. Like this is the best defense of the Patrick Mahomes era. I hope they don't waste it, but they probably will.
I'm gonna before I get to this Cleveland Houston, I am going to say something here, and you're probably going to kill me for it.
Okay.
Dude, are you guys feeling sorry for Steve McMichael, and that's why the guy's being put on this list? I mean, he's not a Hall of Famer. He's not. I see Manny Fernandez, my friend. Manny Fernandez has the same credentials, if not more, than
I'm not. Look, Steve McMichael had a great career.
By the way, I love Mongo. I'm friends. I'm just saying, I'm talking about justice here when it comes to the people that are in the building.
I understand.
I don't mean any disrespect on a man who's ill. I respect it. I tell Jim McManus all the time. I love him. He wants me to fight. I'm like, I'm not. I'm not fighting for that because I don't believe he is. And I mean, Jesus Christ. Right. Does Arn up there really in Chicago have that kind of push?
I don't know what it is. Look, we have 3 seniors on this ballot this year. And I'm not going to break down the cases for each one. I'm saying in a more global sense, I think that the senior process is reserved for guys who are really special cases that you bring to me and you say, look, we just blew it on this guy. We're bringing a lot of guys to the table who they were discussed already. Like the guys looked at those guys and
I feel terrible saying this.
Right. And I don't like saying it either, but like I looked at it in the last 4 years, we put 45 guys in the Hall of Fame.
There's no need for that.
No, it's not. I mean, I'm not happy about it. Okay. I don't think that this is what we really should be doing. This should be something really, truly special. And I know that it's also a topic of discussion in Canton.
He's
Are
got
we
2
low?
Pro Bowls.
I trust me. And but I don't want to go there with McMichael
I
because this
know.
is not about McMichael. It's about
It's the
process.
process. You're right. Fair enough. Fair, okay, that's a better way of
Right.
doing this.
I don't want to turn this on Steve
Okay.
McMichael because that's unfair to Steve
It's unfair
McMichael.
and uncool.
Right. It's not, and you know, and it's just wrong because we could do the same thing with Art Powell. We can do the
Yep.
same thing, you know, with all three of those guys and tear apart their credentials. And they deserve, and those guys deserve respect. Because even when I say we're downgrading what it takes to get into the Hall of Fame, as I say that, that can be taken as an insult to guys who have great resumes. Okay. You know, Jari Evans. I do this survey every year. You know the survey that I do, and Jari Evans is the last guy on that list out of 15 in terms of support. Now he's an offensive lineman and guard. Not a lot of people know what he did. All those kinds of things. Jari Evans was a great player.
Great player.
Great player.
Great resume.
So he may not make it to the Hall of Fame. That doesn't mean he wasn't a great player. Steve McMichael was a great player on a great team. And does he deserve to go in the Hall of Fame? We'll find out in a few weeks. Okay. But I also worry about how many guys are we putting in? Because we're putting a lot of guys into the Hall of Fame. And when you put a lot of guys into the Hall of Fame, it opens the door for more guys who can say, hey, look, I was just as good as that guy.
When do you vote, Jace?
Next week. We'll go to Atlanta. We'll be there for 2 days. And the result, we won't know the results.
You're not going to vote in Vegas. You vote.
No. They changed the whole thing because remember they're doing the TV show and the reveal on Thursday night now, and the TV show includes that the knock on the door thing that they do now, which is not in it used to be in the hotel rooms. Now it's at guys' houses.
Are you a fan of that?
Look, I'm a fan of anything that brings more prominence to the Hall of Fame. Okay, and that brings more prominence to the Hall of Fame. It brings more prominence to guys after they get into the Hall of Fame. That TV show is seen much more on Thursdays than it is on Saturday night.
It also makes your vote more significant. And what I mean
well,
by that is,
but it's not really even about.
Wait,
Jason,
Jason, you're part of the process, though. So, look, when you say this, no, I don't want to make it about me. Well, you're part of all of it. And so that's why I ask you these questions like that, because you're part of the landscape that has to take all these tough questions into consideration. This here, McMichael, that conversation, this guy over here who's being excluded. Maybe we forgot him. Why would I go back in 1945 and put him in when all the writers that were before me, like Paul Zimmerman, said no? Why am I doing that now? So there's a lot of things, and you're part of that. So I think it is important that the people
it's a fair question. It's an important question. There are some things about this new process that I'm uncomfortable with, but on par, I think it's a net positive for the Hall of Fame. My discomfort with a few things here or there is not worth putting up some big complaint when it's doing more justice to the guys who ultimately get in the Hall of Fame. It helps them. It helps add meaning to it. My only problem with what we're doing now is I think we're putting too many people in. We're probably going to put 9 more people in the Hall of Fame this year.
Should be 5.
It should be a number that's probably less than that, 7 or less. I'm willing to get to that, but and again, I'm not a big fan of the senior process. I've never been a big fan of the senior
because it's rewriting history.
Essentially, yes. So
but some history does need to be rewritten. Let me stop you before I get to Cleveland and Houston. I want to give you my only problem with the television show is that what happens is when you have Fox doing that and David Baker doing it back in the day and these guys knocking on the door and stuff, what you're opening yourself to do is is that all these guys that are on television, who are seen every day, who are analysts like Tony Romo or what have you, it becomes where, if you're on TV a lot, this guy becomes something that you see every day. 35 million. What is it? Biggest audience in the history of the National Football League since 2015 was this year. 25 million people watched per game in Fox all NFL Sunday games. And you're going, okay, I mean, don't you take a little bit going, Jesus, man, just because the guy's on TV, does that truly mean that guy's a Hall of Fame guy? I don't know. I mean,
it does, like, it definitely has an impact. I can't measure it. I can't tell you that, but there's no question that it helps visibility wise, right? Nobody's going to argue that. But at the
you
end of
think
the day,
Cowher's a Hall of Fame coach over Mike
who?
Shanahan, Bill Cowher?
Who?
Bill Cowher?
No,
I
not
don't
in my
either.
view. I wasn't part of the group that put him in. I don't
think Bill Cowher's a Hall of Fame coach.
I don't think he is either. I think he was a great coach or a very good coach. And if in his prime, I would have hired him to be the coach of my team if I was an owner. Absolutely.
I think he got in the Hall of Fame because he's on the CBS desk.
I'm not going to argue that point. Okay. There's a lot going on that makes me think that. I don't have proof of that or anything else like that. So I'm not going to go any further with it. But I would not have voted for him for the Hall of Fame personally. I can tell you that. Just, and there are certain guys that I just wouldn't. But yeah, there are some issues with everything you're talking about. Popularity, all that other stuff that goes into it. And the television show may have an impact. But at the end of the day, it still means that people pay more attention to the history of the game. People pay more attention to the greats of the past. We don't forget, like, every time somebody says something stupid like, oh, that guy's changed the game, you sit there and you go, well, maybe if you would learn something about this guy, like, this guy's not really changing the game because that guy before, 40 years ago did that same kind of stuff.
When somebody goes, hey, Patrick Mahomes, man, have you ever seen anything like this? Well, you must have missed 85 with Marino because
or you missed, like some of the other 80s when you saw John Elway, or you missed Joe Montana, or you missed, and I'm not saying that they're not better athletes, okay, because athletes do improve over time, but style of play, like Lamar Jackson didn't reinvent the running quarterback.
Randall Cunningham was the first guy.
Well, not even him. Like, we could act to Bobby Douglas. I mean, not Bobby. Yeah, Bobby Douglas, right? We can go way, way back if you really want to. We can go even further back. There's always been guys who
before his time in Chicago.
Yeah, right. Like, there's all these guys who did stuff like that. Is Lamar Jackson better at it than Randall? Yes, he's a better athlete. He's better trained. We know more about the game. He's been helped a lot more. Baltimore knows how to use him and how to make it work better than ever, in part because of Randall Cunningham, in part because of Michael Vick, in part because of Bobby Douglas, in part of all the things that we didn't know or didn't understand about that. But he's not reinventing the game. That doesn't exist. There are maybe 4 guys in the history of the game who reinvented the game. And they're guys like LT, Jim Brown, Jerry Rice, and like maybe go back to like Sid Luckman and the forward pass, right? Like, there's just a couple of guys who reinvented the game. Right?
Isn't that crazy, Chase? You can only have to do this, right? 32, 56, and 80. And you'd already know who those guys are because they reinvented the ball game. And like you say, if you want to go 42 with ball, go there. I mean, pick one.
Oh, yeah. Like, those are guys that changed the game in its infancy. And guys right now, they're all doing some derivation depending on what's like. Josh Allen is John Elway. Okay. He's a sloppier version of John Elway right now. Okay. He's got to get some things under control. Well, he's got John Elway's physical skill with Favre's sloppiness with the ball, right? and maybe he'll fix that. He'll learn the hard way after this year and look at it and go, I got to stop throwing the ball up for grabs, and then he'll change it around. We'll see. But he's a great player. But he's not reinventing everything. I mean, I hear from the Buffalo people about how he should have been the MVP, and I'm like, you know what? Turnovers count.
Yeah.
Hey. Turnovers, and I'm telling you this: if you talk to the defensive guys, and excuse my language, but defensive guys, every time there's an interception by the quarterback, and you start piling them on and piling them on and piling them on, it's like, hey, fucker, can you stop doing that shit? I want to go sit over here. I want to sit for a little while. Can you just stay on the goddamn field? I don't even care if you score. Just stay on the field. Let me rest, will you?
That's funny,
that's what fans don't understand that.
Let's do the final game here.
Okay.
Cleveland, Houston. How about this story? You don't really think Joe Flacco's going to win this game and get into it?
Yes, I do. I do.
Hey, wait now. Let me play one more.
Well, let me say this. Joe Flacco's not going to win this game. He's going to be on the winning team.
Wait a second here. If Flacco wins the Super Bowl and gets 2 Super Bowl championships.
No.
And throws for 40,000 yards.
No.
He's the MVP in the Super Bowl.
No.
Why are you refuting? Oh, you'll put Eli in. He's got 2.
I know. Don't stretch the limitations of my imagination this far. I'll put Jim Plunkett in before I put Flacco in.
Hold on. I gotta check. How many?
Don't do this. Don't make this argument.
How many passing yards all time does Flacco have?
Oh, stop that. Just stop it.
He's got 43,000 passing yards.
Oh, whatever. So Brady's got 80
He's got more than Montana, your boy.
Different. Yeah, those eras are really similar. Okay. Yeah.
Wait. If he gets 2 Super Bowl rings.
No. Stop.
45,000 yards. Man.
Yeah, you're just being that. See, this is radio jock stuff. Stop this.
He'll have as many Super Bowls as your boy from Stanford.
If he does it, he's a Disney story. We will make a movie about Joe Flacco. Okay?
He's a movie of the week. He's not a Hall of Famer.
He's not a Hall of Famer, but he gets to have a Disney movie made about him, right?
Wait a minute. He's a Sunday movie of the week.
It's like the
not
Rookie.
A pro football.
It's the Rookie. It's all the Rookie all over again. He gets up off the couch. They call him up, say, hey, we need you. And all of a sudden he's in the Super Bowl. It's like Keanu Reeves and The Replacements, okay? That's what it is. Holy cow,
you're comparing him to George Plimpton.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm doing.
He's George Plimpton.
You want to put Joe Flacco in the Hall of Fame.
I asked you the question. I
want to talk to your wife. I want to talk to your wife because she's going to she'll slap you around.
She likes the guy because he's got an O in his name. That's it.
Or a vowel ends his name. So, hey, I like that.
He's one of them guys. It's all good. Jace, I appreciate it, my friend. It's always entertaining talking to you, man. It should be a great. Hey, what do you like better, the wild card weekend, divisional round, or conference championship weekend?
Divisional round.
Divisional round, the best.
Divisional round's the best one because there's more on the line. Look, with the 7-team format, you got some teams in there that I'm like, whatever. Like Cleveland and Houston is kind of a cool game and kind of interesting, and those teams would have qualified anyways. But I also see it's going to be hard for Stroud to score against Jim Schwartz defense. With those guys, I don't think it's I don't think that's going to be a very pretty game. I don't think it's going to be particularly well. I love C.J. Stroud, but if you tell me you got C.J. Stroud going against Jim Schwartz, and Jim Schwartz has Myles Garrett and that secondary to start, that's a rough go. That's a really rough go for the young quarterback.
And closing here, Mr. Stanford, how did you guys tolerate Jim Harbaugh running around there in Palo Alto, telling all you do-gooders to do it this way and shut your mouth and admissions? I want him in. I want that guy.
He's the greatest thing that ever happened to Stanford football ever. Jim
Oh,
Harbaugh.
you think he's the greatest coach ever?
He's the greatest. He's the greatest thing to ever happen to Stanford football.
Huh?
Now we can have we can have an argument
Besides
about John
Elway.
Ralston. Yeah, I mean, Elway's a different thing.
Elway and him. Elway, the player,
well,
coach.
I mean, you got Bill Walsh too, who's there,
Okay,
and John Ralston too, right?
And Dennis Green.
And Dennis Green had a nice ride. But the one thing that Jim Harbaugh did, right? The one thing that Jim Harbaugh did was it no longer
Bill Walsh.
Well, but I understand Walsh. Green.
Okay, hang on here. I need to calm down on that one because wait, you think he's better than them guys?
No, I said he's the most important thing to happen to Stanford football ever for this reason. Okay. He came in and said, we're not here to play just pretty football. We're not going to like outsmart you and outsay. We're going to actually go toe to toe with you. We're going to mash you. We're going to run at you. We're going to have Toby Gerhart. We're going to have, we're going to play power football with 2 and 3 tight ends a lot. And you guys are going to get in the weight room and you're going to be tough guys. And we're not going to, we're not here to play West Coast offense. We're playing big boy football. And it was like, well, wait a second. We can do that? It's like, yeah, you can. You don't have to be Mr. Smarty Pants all the time and just play, pretty football. And you have to have a quarterback. Now, we did have good quarterbacks. I'm not saying that. But he did that. The other thing is he came in and he said when we were going up to play USC one time, he goes, Stanford bows to no one. Okay. He literally said that.
They were 38-point underdogs and killed them.
Right. And I go, Stanford bows to no one. We're going to play and we're going to show up and we're going to hit you in the mouth. And he said that was what we were going to do. And then he did it.
Oh man!
So I
remember that game. Don't you remember Carroll and him when they met and Pete's talking shit to him and he was like a 38-point underdog and he had made that comment in the week in the pressers. He goes, "We're not bound to anybody, man. I don't care what you guys say." And I think they beat them by 28.
I can't remember exactly the game. I don't know if they lost. I don't know if that was the one that they lost. They might have lost that game by a point, and then they came back and they beat them the next year or something like that. But the whole point is Jim Harbaugh taught us you don't have to back down from anybody. Yeah, you're not a football school, but you come in and you play and you lift weights and you hit people. I mean, the stories about him, like Zach Ertz tells a great story about how they were practicing like for the Orange Bowl or something like that on Christmas Eve, right? Getting ready for the Orange Bowl that year. And Harbaugh has such a physical practice. They're in full pads on Christmas Eve, right? That they end up in a brawl on Christmas Eve.
It's fantastic.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
And that stuff never happened at Stanford under Bill Walsh or John Ralston or even Denny Green. As much as they wanted it to happen, it never really did happen. But with Harbaugh, it happened. It's like, okay, we can do this. We don't have to be afraid. So that's why I say he's the most important thing. And that's why we had the longest run of bowl appearances ever. Starting with Harbaugh and continuing to David Shaw. I think 7 straight years. We had never gone to a bowl game more than 2 years in a row before that. But absolutely. Jim Harbaugh set the table.
Absolutely. Jace, what a great segment. I really appreciate you taking as time as you did, man. We had a fun time today. That was a lot of stuff we covered, and I really appreciate your insight and especially being candid about a process that I revere. I mean, my uncle's in that place, as you know, and it matters to me more than a lot of other people would because of what he did in the league and who he was in the league and the standard he set in the league and who he played for in the league. So I appreciate you always doing this for me. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk soon.
You got it. The great Jason Cole, Pro Football Hall of Fame voter and NFL insider. Do me a favor, guys. Please hit the like button. Keep it here, National Football Show.
This will help you find it for you looking for. Turn up for the Well, in Hooters, the perfect